that happens,
Sequential days.
yeah, that are consecutive, maybe consecutive day. I don't know if that makes it clearer.
Well, consecutive suggests that it would be like within the day, like sequential, consecutive. They're weekly, that's not consecutive,
Right,
so this does not apply to them.
No.
okay, that they were unclear about that. And this is aside from any business license that someone may already have in town.
Well, no, if they already, again, this is a 2-day,
Yeah.
This is for a 2-day event.
Yes, okay, just wanted to make that clear, so.
If they're a business and they're not operating at their place of business, but in another location, like in the park or somewhere else doing something, then they would need.
They would need the license, yes, correct. If they're not
If they're in
located
front
at
of
the
their
park.
brick and mortar location, they don't.
Correct.
But they can be outside in front of their brick.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I thought that's what you had read, so,
That's correct.
okay. Any more discussion? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
All right, thank you.
Chuckamundo.
Thank you. Town of Bath Ordinance 2024-03-8. This is short-term rentals, bed and breakfast facilities, Airbnb, VRBO, that type of thing. The purpose of the regulations set forth in this ordinance is to provide a procedure to allow the rental of private residence to visitors on a short-term basis, less than 30 days, while ensuring that such rental use does not create adverse impacts to residential neighborhoods due to excessive traffic, noise, and density occupancy as well. Additionally, this section is intended to ensure that the number of occupants within such rental units does not exceed the design capacity of the structure to cause health and safety concerns, and that the minimum health and safety standards are maintained in such units to protect visitors from unsafe and unsanitary conditions. We're going to highlight the main points of this. All of the ordinances are available here at Town Hall. Are they also available online?
They're online, yes.
Online as well. If anyone is interested in scheduling a meeting one-on-one to go over these, I'm also available to do that. Section 18-134, bed and breakfast facility or short-term rental facility license required. It shall be unlawful to operate a bed and breakfast facility or short-term rental facility without a bed and breakfast facility or short-term rental facility license, or in violation of any provision of a bed and breakfast facility or short-term rental facility license, this article or any other applicable town ordinance or other law. License application and review. To obtain a license for a bed and breakfast facility or short-term rental facility, a person must submit an application on a form provided for that purpose to the town. The application must contain the following: name, street address, mailing address, email address, and telephone number of the applicant, the owner, and the designated operator of a bed and breakfast facility or short-term rental facility. The applicant must assign a designated operator who shall be available at all times the rental is in use. This way they can be contacted by phone, or they would be on the premises. If the applicant or owner is a partnership, a corporation, or a limited liability company, the application should list the names of all partners, directors, members, officers of the applicant and the owner. A scaled site plan that includes property lines, existing structures, proposed signage, etc., is also required. A non-refundable license fee for the amount established, which is $200 per year, and proof that the applicant has no delinquent hotel, motel occupancy taxes due on the property. Length of license and renewal. A bed and breakfast facility license or short-term rental facility license shall be valid for a maximum period of 1 year from the date of issuance through the annual renewal date of July 1, and may be renewed at that time by applying in accordance with Section 18-155. Bed and breakfast facilities or short-term rental facilities as of July 1, 2024 are required to obtain a license under the provisions of this article. Fees. An annual license fee of $200 will be charged at the time of issuing the license and at the time of renewal. The town council shall set the fees for the license and renewal. The license fee is non-refundable and will not be prorated for periods of less than 12 months. Operation of a bed and breakfast facility or short-term rental facility. A licensee shall comply with the noise ordinance requirements set forth in Chapter 50 of this code. The licensee shall comply with all rules and standards necessary for safeguarding of life and property as set forth in the West Virginia Building Code, WVSBC 15A-11-5. This includes, but is not limited to, operating smoke detectors, at least one operable egress window per bedroom, an evacuation plan, repair of any exposed wiring, as well as all required safety measures for pools if applicable and exterior stairwells if applicable. Functions such as meetings, receptions, weddings, or other social events provided for compensation or held by guests are not permitted as part of the bed and breakfast facility or short-term rental facility unless an events permit has been issued by the town. So we're trying to avoid someone just has an Airbnb, they're holding a large party, it's not licensed, it's not permitted, and we will close that down. Law enforcement will close that down. The designated operator shall be available at all times the property is being rented. Contact information will be furnished to owners of real property within 200 feet of the bed and breakfast facility or short-term rental facility by the town. A sign must also be posted conspicuously with that information. Section 18-139, additional requirements and restrictions. Parking. The operator must provide parking information for guests, taking into consideration the availability of both paid and unpaid parking, as well as weekend parking, reserved on-site parking, if applicable and preferred, and permitted use of private and public lots. So it's our preference, we're not enforcing it, that you have reserved parking, but we understand that it's not possible throughout the entire town. Signs, the size of the sign shall not exceed 6 square feet in area. Lighting, all lighting must be directed towards the establishment and not at adjacent properties. Occupancy, the maximum number of adults allowed to reside at any bed and breakfast facility or short-term rental facility is 2 adults per bedroom plus 2 additional adults per rental unit. So if you got a pull-out sofa, then that's also acceptable. Revocation, suspension, or denial of a license. The designated town code enforcement officer or chief of the police department may immediately revoke or suspend a license or deny either issuance or renewal thereof if it is found the licensee, designated operator, or guest has violated to fail to meet the provisions of this article. The licensee, designated operator, or guest has violated a federal, state, or city law. The code enforcement officer, chief of the police department, or chief of the fire department has determined that the bed and breakfast facility or short-term rental facility would pose a serious threat to public health, safety, or welfare, or the applicant has made false statements of material fact on an application for a short-term rental facility license. Tax requirements. All short-term rental operators in West Virginia are required to collect state sales tax from their guests. The collected taxes must then be remitted to the West Virginia State Tax Department. This applies to rentals of living quarters or accommodations in hotels, motels, inns, or similar places, including residential properties offered for short-term rental. In addition to state sales tax, operators are responsible for collecting and remitting local occupancy taxes on all short-term rental properties located within the town corporate limits. All local occupancy taxes must be remitted directly to the town of Bath. Notice to applicants, licensee on appeals. Upon denial, suspension, or revocation, the town code enforcement officer or chief of the police department shall notify the applicant or licensee in writing, either in person or by certified mail, to the address listed on the application, the action taken and the reasons therefor. Any licensee having an interest in any license so revoked and feels aggrieved thereby may request the town code enforcement officer or chief of the police department to further investigate the grounds for the revocation, to reconsider his actions, and if the town enforcement officer or chief of the police department accedes to such request, he may suspend or reinstate upon consideration. Appeals shall be submitted to the town in writing within 30 days following the date the applicant or licensee receives the decision. A hearing on the denial, suspension, or revocation will be scheduled for the next regular meeting of the town council that is more than 6 days away. The decision of the town council following such hearing shall be final. The licensee may seek an appeal by the municipal court of the town of Bath within 60 days of that decision. When revoked, the license shall be canceled and immediately surrendered to the town clerk or chief of the police department. Upon revocation of any license as provided in this chapter, no portion of the license fee shall be returned to the licensee. General provisions that all ordinance or parts of the ordinance in conflict with the provision of this article hereby repealed, that the terms and provisions of this ordinance shall be deemed to be severable, and that if any section, subsection, sentence, clause, or phrase of this ordinance shall be declared to be invalid or unconstitutional, the same shall not affect the validity of any other section, subsection, sentence, clause, or phrase of this ordinance, and the remainder of such ordinance shall continue in full force and effect, the same as if such invalid or unconstitutional provision never been part hereof, that a violation of the provisions hereof shall be a misdemeanor, and the penalty for violating this ordinance shall be a fine not to exceed $200, and each day a violation exists shall constitute a separate offense and fine of $25. And that completes the second reading of Town of Bath Ordinance 2024-03-8, short-term rentals.
Question. I'll be on. I just want to make sure it's in there. Does the town send a bill to the bed and breakfast in the short term every July? Or is that our responsibility to come to you and remember in July that we have to pay that annual fee?
I
I
would,
don't know it's there.
it's gonna be their
They'll be-
responsibility.
Yeah, well, that, and also we will be mailing out the form and a copy of the ordinance
Of
as
people
well.
that we
No.
had, right.
That are already
Maybe
paying.
more that have moved in, it's gonna be their
Responsibility when
responsibility.
they come to apply for a business license, as they're required to do by law, and at that time, they'll get all that information. If they're already paying hotel motel taxes currently, then we'll have all their contact information, and we can send that out.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Yes, all right. You heard the reading of, the second reading of 2024-3308.
I have a question.
Sure.
Under section 18-142, you mentioned a code enforcement officer.
Right.
What is that?
Well, right now, that's a position that we will create in the future as we have qualified people that can do that. We've had conversations with the West Virginia Fire Marshal's Office, and there are certain, they're allowing much more flexibility for smaller municipalities to have code enforcement officers. If you are a certified engineer, you automatically are certified through the state of West Virginia to serve as a code enforcement officer. And we have two gentlemen that are both engineers, and will have automatic certification for that.
Could we also said, chief of police department?
Mhm.
Could we have the mayor's title as, what are you current?
Police commissioner.
Police commissioner or chief of police, in case we have a vacancy.
I wouldn't have a problem with that. No. All right.
It's just a suggestion.
Can,
I mean,
In case we have a
Or-
vacancy in
or-
the chief of police position, is that what you're
right,
suggesting?
or, yeah. I mean, hopefully that's not gonna happen, but we have had periods where we haven't had a chief of police.
So,
I think
So-
that would be acceptable, and just adding
And
those
that-
words
yeah.
can be done at this meeting, at this
Okay,
time.
right.
and
Right.
it can-
Is it
it can
friendly
move
amendment?
forward.
Because
Yes.
it does say town code enforcement officer or chief of police, chief of police.
Right,
But it's not consistently through it, but we can,
Comma,
right,
no,
right.
comma.
everybody okay with that?
my only position on that is as far as pulling the mayor into that. And you're pulling in a member of council, and if someone does seek a appeal of a,
Yeah, I would have to recuse it, whoever the mayor is would have to recuse themselves.
Well, not if you're given the authority.
Well,
Well, it does say in the number 3 also it says the chief of police department, so you do have a third person there. Enforcement officer, chief of police, or the chief of the fire department.
Couldn't we just make the language consistent throughout town code enforcement officer or chief of the police department? That should cover it throughout.
and that is,
That's what he's got.
it's already throughout.
Yeah,
So there's at
Okay.
least one of them going to be standing at all times.
All right.
Yeah,
that's fine.
all right.
Thank you, Beth.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Those are the valid points.
Now, if somebody wants to put it in, form there and,
So I don't think we need an amendment if we're good with the language as we.
No.
That's
We,
fine.
we need to go ahead and, we got a vote on it there for the second one, so I need a motion.
Motion to approve,
Motion for the second reading,
yes.
to approve the, ordinance,
To approve.
2024-0308.
Yep.
So, okay, I have a motion.
Motion for me.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the floor for the second reading of the ordinance 2024-0308, short-term rental ordinance. We will, any more discussion? Yeah,
I don't want to interrupt, but I have a question. Is the bed and breakfast license separate from the business license, the town business license?
Yes.
So does that mean they have to pay 2 license fees to open 1 bed and breakfast per year?
It would be like if you're having a restaurant and you have a restaurant license and then you have a liquor license also because.
That's a statement.
So isn't the town $20?
Mhm.
And so any town business in town has $20 business license per
Correct.
year. Is that going up next year or in July?
I don't know.
We haven't got that far along
Yeah.
yet.
Well, I guess my question is, what was the rationale for all of a sudden saying, okay, here's a brand new $200 business license for a bed and breakfast when
Because managing, when there's a reason for that. One, managing the Airbnb, is costly. Anytime it's a burden on our law enforcement, it's a burden on, trash, just, and the failure for some folks to obey even simple ordinances. It is difficult for neighbors to these folks that are parking 6 cars on the street, making a lot of noise. And, if we want to be able to provide, the best possible services to the residents of this town as far as law enforcement and trash pickup and everything else, it costs money.
Right.
And we're trying, and not only that, is that we have such a high number of Airbnbs and VRBOs just in the county and now making their way into town. It's very difficult because, you have no place for folks to live. It's very restrictive and difficult for anyone looking to buy a house. It's very reasonable fee for folks that are doing this full time, and a lot of people are.
Right.
so
It's a cost of doing business.
So the benefits to the bed and breakfast or short-term rental owner are increased law enforcement. Is that right?
Well, that's where we're trying to get to as a community, to improve law
And
enforcement
then-
And code enforcement.
and
the-
code enforcement. and more
But the
importantly.
sentiment from the council behind this is to kind of discourage Airbnbs and B&Bs in town limits.
Well, we
Not discouraged.
not discouraged. We want them to comply with existing ordinances, and that's the most important thing. Where there's tremendous problems outside of town that are making their way in town as it relates to people that cannot comply with ordinance, particularly speeding is entirely unacceptable in this town, and parking is already an issue. So you just don't want someone parking 8 cars where there's just not 8 parking spots, and the occupancy is 4 people.
So is it fair to say, though, that the business fee that's being proposed, the $200 fee per year, is really just increasing our law enforcement presence in town? It's not really giving any other benefit to
No,
the
it's
owners.
not, that's too restrictive, Priscilla. It's not just law enforcement, it's also code enforcement
Public Works, this is.
All
the
the
trash
things.
pickups and-
that make this,
Yeah.
and here's the problem, what we're seeing in the county, we now have HOAs who are outright banning, and folks have made the investment in these homes that they plan to make rental income from, and now the HOAs are like, we're over it. Too much noise, too much trash. This is a preemptive measure in many
Very
ways
much.
to maintain the quality of the VRBO and Airbnb presence in this community without having it be burdensome to anyone.
We have owners that are absentee owners of property. Now
Right.
we're gonna be able to find these people, and make sure that we're actually forward thinking on this. These fees and permits, we're ahead of the curve on this, but everyone's going to have it. It's just a matter of time. They're already-
Do you think that it will have a chilling effect or send owners underground or whatever, discourage growth?
Well, I don't expect, it's not gonna
It's
have
like
anything to
a
do
one
with growth.
night, right? One night fee.
No, I understand. I'm not saying it's a weird amount. I'm just saying that it's so new and it's a pretty big amount for people who are not used to paying anything, right?
Well, I mean, again, there are costs associated with this, and we want to improve the quality of life for everyone, not just the business owners, the residents and the neighbors that live adjacent to these properties.
Is the town of Bath gonna have any sort of list like that says, hey, here are the official local short-term rentals that are within the town of Bath, and have it be some sort of positive marketing for the companies that are.
That's something we have been discussing about, your Berkeley Springs Getaway starts in the historic town of Bath and stay here, dine here, et cetera. So yes, there is some value added coming on that.
So to her first question with the license, I think that's a good point. I think most businesses pay the town one fee. So I don't know if you plan to like commingle them into like one application. You know what I mean? So it's not two separate applications, two separate amounts.
Right.
Well,
We need two separate accounts because there's a lot of businesses that are not Airbnbs.
And I think with this application,
Well, no, she said there was a $20
Yeah,
license
business.
fee.
For everybody, for any business in town.
So it seems to
Mine's
me that
way
the
more than
200 would sort of
Well, you have
supersede the
restaurants.
$20.
Right, but
So if you were B&B only, then you should just have this particular license, not this and that.
No, because one's for generally doing business and one is specifically for doing business as an Airbnb.
You don't think that has a chilling effect on?
No.
It's
$220.
It's,
No, not at all.
well,
That's
then
one
maybe you
night,
should just
that's
make
one
their
night
fee
rent.
$220 then,
Yeah.
in one application.
No,
That's-
because not everybody falls in both categories, so we have to fairly delineate the fees based on each end user's consumption of services.
Makes sense.
It is not the purpose of the council to run business away. We want to enhance the business opportunity in our community, and it starts with communications. And that coming in is the opening step of the communications between us and that Airbnb. I have a friend who does repair works for Airbnbs and was called out at 11 o'clock one night to an Airbnb. There was a large party going on, and this was out in the county, and where he went into the home, stacked in the back room was 35 long guns. And what's the scenario that would need 35 long guns, for a Saturday night situation? This is a communication aspect where the town needs to know what's really happening within our boundaries.
but we're not going to inspect every
No,
unit, every.
Not at all.
No.
It does provide oversight through licensing that allows us to know who our owners are that are subject to this fee, and to be more aware and have the opportunity to enforce when there's an issue.
well, when there's a definite
Right,
issue.
when there's an issue
Right.
that's reported.
To be a good, yes, to be a good neighbor, to hold businesses to a higher standard, to make sure that we are improving the quality of life for everyone in the community, particularly for the folks that live here. And, the rental market or the Airbnbs and so forth, it's challenging for folks that can have difficulty finding a place to park their car. And then if you're a neighboring business and this is going on, you have impacts from that. People aren't going to want to go into your business if you have a bunch of noise and trash next door on a Friday or Saturday evening. So all that needs to be policed. And that's the standard that we're setting.
And these fees go back into the town to help us
Absolutely.
account for all of the costs that we have, particularly garbage, street fees, since theft.
Most
It's
of the
always
cars
Yeah,
I
public
see,
safety
And
too,
safety.
Right.
so.
Public safety is an
Yeah.
absolute
Yeah,
priority
public
for
safety
this
is-
council. I mean, we need to increase public safety by 50% as far as the hours that we're serving the community. So you got to get there somehow. And this is a small part of that process, but that's,
We have a very unique community in the town of Bath, and we don't want to lose that more than anything. And the communications that are trying to be set up are to maintain who we are as the town of Bath. That unique place where you want to come and go soak at our state park, or go walk and run, or walk around our community.
Right,
Those are the
peaceful-
areas where
yeah,
we want to advance.
exactly.
Okay,
Okay,
any more discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Oh, that motion
No,
carries.
no, thank you for the questions. They're all good questions and they should be asked.
Go ahead and do one I can do.
All right.
Okay, so
Intermission? Are you asking for an
Intermission, I
intermission?
drink too much water, people.
let me bring something up real quick. I would say that, so I would say this law, as in any other law, if when it's implemented, we find out, boy, we made a big mistake, or we forgot something, or this isn't working at all, they can always go back and amendment.
Yes, that's
You
correct.
know, it can always be altered, amended, repealed, any of that. I think that we've gotten enough rough stuff happen that it has made us all think. You may remember in last week's newspaper was a letter to the editor that we did not set up, about this same thing. But I know where this person lives, and I know what has happened because I've had other neighbors in that situation say, woo, so, or this is different for the neighborhood. So that's it. If you find, or anyone finds that there's a real issue with it, legitimate issue, come.
Right.
Honestly, we want to know.
The one thing I would say though is that up until this point, the town has, as we have in many ways before we started pulling back the curtain and doing the financial analysis on how the town operates, we have been indirectly subsidizing many activities that the town is not collecting fees on, and we can barely balance our budget. So we're really trying to calibrate being able to responsibly provide the service you should come to expect, and to be able to do that without going into deficit spending ourselves, which explains the financial component.
That's correct.
Intermission's over. Where's Scott?
Well, we can go. He's in the middle of.
Did these all take effect
Just
on July 1st?
don't worry.
Yes.
Sorry about that, everybody.
No worries. We got one more.
No, we have two
Two
more.
more.
That's why I'm thinking, oh my gosh. All
Okay,
Move on.
right, let's move on.
off you go.
We're gonna move on to water, our sacred treasure here in town, and doing the best we can to protect that treasure, to make sure that our plant is equipped with everything it needs to have in order to process the water and to provide healthy water to our visitors and residents alike. But more importantly, when it relates to the water tariff, capacity fees are the critical component of the water tariff. So as development comes into town and requests our water, there's going to be fees attached to that. So if you're a developer and your intention is 50 townhouses, if you did that tomorrow, you would be charged a total of $850, and we would have responsibility for the repair, replacement, maintenance of those lines. And that's a proposition where we would lose tens of thousands of dollars. That same developer comes into town after the tariff is approved, and that's 50 units at $1,500, which is $75,000, which goes into the Berkeley Springs Water Works account, into repair and replacement. So it allows us to at least keep our plant where it needs to be, and protects the water, and there's no interruption in your water service. So it's very, very critical that those capacity fees are included. Not all municipalities have them yet. Everyone is moving in that direction. But we just wanted to make sure that based on the development activity that we're seeing and hearing of, that we get this done as quickly as possible. So the tariff, starting with rates, 2,000 gallons used per month.
What page are you on, Brad?
I'm moving to page 2.
I'm sorry, is this for new stuff or is this?
No, this will be the water tariff. The capacity fees are for new development on residential, industrial, and commercial usage. The tariff applies to the water increases applies to everyone, but for capacity fees only applies to new construction. So 2,000 gallons used per month, it will be $19.36 per 1,000 gallons. Your next 3,000 gallons, we charge at $13.99 per 1,000 gallons. The next 50,000 gallons, as we move more towards commercial usage, at $11.20 per 1,000 gallons. And all over 150,000 gallons used per month, $5.66 per 1,000 gallons. And that applies to our industrial water users, for instance, US Silica. How does that impact the current billing right now? On the minimum bill, you're at $32.28, and that bill will move to $38.72. So you have an increase of just a little less than $6. On a 5/8 inch meter, on a 3/4 inch meter, the minimum bill will be $60.53. On a 1 inch meter, $100.90 per month. 1.5 inch meter, $201.75 per month. 2 inch meter is $322.80 per month. 3 inch meter, $605.25 per month. 4 inch meter, $1,008.75 per month. 6 inch meter, $2,017.50 per month, and an 8 inch meter, $3,228 per month. But that applies to the very heavy water users. And those are a more limited amount of customers on that. Private fire protection services, a 1 inch line with hydrant, sprinklers, and or hose connections, $15.63 per month. 2 inch service line with hydrants, sprinklers, hose connection, $20.83. 3 inch service line, $32.29. 4 inch service line, $43.75. 6 inch service line, $56.25, and an 8 inch service line, $68.75. Delayed payment penalty. The above tariff is net and all accounts not paid in full when due. A penalty in the amount of 10% will be added to the net current unpaid amount. This delayed payment penalty is not interest, and it's to be collected only once for each bill where it's appropriate. Water disconnect, reconnect, and administrative fees. Whenever water service has been disconnected for any reason, a disconnection fee of $35 will be charged. Whenever water service, which has been previously disconnected for any reason, is reconnected, a reconnection fee of $35 will be charged. A $35 reconnection fee will be assessed for each occurrence where water service is restored after being terminated for non-payment. Equipment tampering is very important. The property owner will be responsible for any damage to or otherwise tampering with the Berkeley Springs Water Works system, which includes but is not limited to all piping and meters used and useful in providing water service, and all appurtenances.
It's a word.
It's a word thereof is prohibited under West Virginia Code 61-3-45. Violators shall be subject to potential termination of service, fines, and penalties not to exceed $2,000, in addition to the replacement cost, inclusive of material labor for damaged equipment. Return check charge, a service charge equal to the actual bank fee assessed to the utility up to a maximum of $25 will be imposed upon customers whose check for payment of charges is returned by the bank. Tap fee, as we discussed, is $850 whenever the install is a 5/8 or 3/4 inch new tap. Meter testing, a charge of $35 we applied for any meter test requested by the customer. Leak adjustment. A leak adjustment rate of $2.34 per 1,000 gallons is to be used when the bill reflects unusual consumption in excess of 200% of the customer's historical usage that can be attributed to leakage on the customer's side of the meter. Security deposits, $75 or 2/12 of the average annual usage of the applicant's specific customer class, whichever is greater. Municipal excise tax surcharge, the municipality listed below having imposed a public utility tax, which has been in place, computed on the basis of 2% of the revenues from the water sales by the Berkeley Springs Water Works within the corporate limits of such municipality. Said tax billed as a surcharge to the customers receiving service within said corporate limits. The water utility is required to collect the utility tax pursuant to West Virginia Code 813-5A, and that amounts to 2%. Now, the capacity capital cost fees, and this is what we were talking about a little bit earlier. Again, it's generally one equivalent usage unit is $1,500. So depending on what someone is looking to do, On a single-family residence, it's $1,500 per each unit. Apartments is $1,500 per apartment. It's $1,500 per mobile home. If it's the mobile home park, it would be $1,500 multiplied by the number of units in the park. The same applies for condominiums. Schools works out to $150, which is 0.1% per pupil. And that also depends if it's cafeteria or non-cafeteria. On commercial service stations, for each 3.3 sets of pumps, a service station development project would be billed at $4,995 per 3.3 sets of pumps. This is standard in all municipalities that are using the capital capacity costs. Shopping centers works out to 16 gallons of water per every 100 square feet of sales space. So with that number, again, is dependent if you're 10,000 square feet or 20 or 5 will determine your overall bill for that. In the theater situation, 3 gallons per seat. So most of those won't be as impactful. Fast food restaurant, 35 gallons per seat, works out to $345, depending on the total number of seating available. Hotel motel, 120 gallons per day per room. So you'll have about a $1,200 fee for every room in a hotel. So if someone wants to open up a 100-room hotel, it's $1,200 per room or $120,000 to the Berkeley Springs Waterworks. Repeal conflicting ordinances. This ordinance will replace the existing ordinance. The provisions of this ordinance are severable, and if any clause, provision, or section hereof be held void or unenforceable by the Public Service Commission or any court of competent jurisdiction, such holding shall not affect the remainder of this ordinance. Upon introduction hereof, the recorder shall cause to be published notice of this ordinance in the Morgan Messenger, a qualified newspaper of general circulation in the town of Bath, as a Class 1 publication at least 5 days before the meeting of the town council, which a final reading and vote on the ordinance will be held. Said notice shall state that this ordinance has been introduced and that any person interested may appear before council on the 4th day of June 2024 at 5:30 p.m. and present comments or protests, if any. And that completes the first reading of the updated Town of Bath Berkeley Springs Waterworks water tariff.
Okay. Guys heard all that?
I make a motion that we accept the new or the proposed tariffs for the Berkeley Springs Water Works.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the floor for the first reading of the Town of Bath Berkeley Springs Waterworks revised water tariff ordinance. Any discussion?
How would you know what size meter?
You can call the office and I can,
How would you
I
know
can
what
give
size
them.
meter that you have in your building?
Depends upon who you are, depending upon when I say that, it depends upon the capacity of that building, what's the needs in that building. Typically, just a building or like a small warehouse should realistically have a 1-inch meter. And then depending upon that, like West Virginia Springhouse Water Company, when they were tied in and using our water, they had a 2-inch meter. If you were to go to US Silica out the street, they have a 6-inch meter. So depending upon the need of each facility will dictate the meter size that goes in. Unless you move into an apartment building that may have multiple units, and each individual unit may have its own 5/8, 3/4 meter instead of a master meter. And the law allows for a master meter if the business owner so wishes to absorb that water bill and divide it amongst the number of people. But typically you'll have anywhere from 6 to 10 water meters located within that building so that every individual apartment would know, the owners would know how much water was being
And
consumed.
most, if you're thinking, Betsy, in terms of your building, I would assume it's 5/8 going into the restaurant.
I'm just curious.
You can find out.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
all
I
you
was
do is
just-
call Sharon, she can give you exactly what size meter should be in there.
So is there a way to estimate, like based on your usage? Would it be easy to be able to determine what the increase, what that would reflect in the increase in water bills moving forward, like based on?
Yeah, if you know, if, again, if the minimum bill is 2,000 gallons, you know, if that's jumping up to, you know, you're going over 3,000 gallons, but less than, you know, 4 or so, you know, you're going to be in the high 40s.
40s.
Yeah.
40s. What, I don't know what that means.
Like, so,
You lost me a long time ago. When-
$45.
Not 40,000.
yeah,
40.
40, yeah, so you would probably.
$40, $45.
So the majority of people in town use 2,000 or 3,000 gallons.
Yes.
And so the new cost for the low water users is going up $6.
$6.
$6.
I got
$6,
I got that part.
Yeah.
And then
They
the
usually-
remainder are going up.
Yeah, if you're using free, then you would take that lower rate for the next usage of the next 1,000 gallons, would put you at like $51.
So I could call and talk to somebody and
Yeah,
y'all could
yeah,
tell me. Okay.
yeah. If you're 34,000 gallons.
This,
I don't know how many
this
gallons
entire
I use, I
law
don't know what
is,
it's-
is required
No,
to
I
be
just
posted.
Yes.
It is
Right.
the Morgan
I look.
Messenger.
Yes.
Which you
So,
noted, probably will.
yes, so we'll be walking that over tomorrow, whatever.
Yes, I'll take care of that. It'll be in next week. Unfortunately, it's not in tomorrow's. I didn't get it.
No, not.
Please
tomorrow,
excuse my
but-
ignorance, ma'am. But a restaurant, you have a restaurant in town?
Mhm.
And may I ask where it's at?
Lot 12.
Excuse me?
Lot 12.
Oh, lot 12.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. Please excuse my ignorance.
Well,
Don't ever get to
same.
be 80.
Right back at
Something-
you. I just wanted to see how I could determine like what to expect.
Okay.
I would not be a bit surprised if at this very moment, it's a 5/8, 3/4 residential meter that's there.
Okay.
We'll find out if you're right at the next meeting. Let's fact check that.
Okay, all right. Okay, any other questions from council or people out there in the audience? If not, I will call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries for the first reading. So we'll get that over, get it published in the Morgan Messenger and have copies, I guess, in here if somebody needs to review it.
We'll talk to our the town attorney, there's a water specialist, William Rohrball, who was working with us in creating the new water tariff and capital capacity fees tariff. Which brings us on to our next discussion. We have kicked around for an extended period of time between B&O and 1% municipal sales tax. And that was a conversation that we looked at all sides of that. We met with just about, well, quite a few people in town to think about the direction that we should go with that. It took a while to get the research that really kind of put us over the top. We've requested research from the state of West Virginia Department of Taxation, specifically to municipalities that are around us as well as other municipalities of a similar size. And we came back with some really interesting data. Cape and Bridge, for instance, which is a relatively small community, they're receiving $115,000 a year as the result of a 1% municipal sales tax. The B&O tax for that town would probably be less than $20,000. Bolivar, which is a very small community as well, is about $100,000 per year. And the town of Paw Paw is about $58,000 per year as a result of a 1% increase in the municipal sales tax. So it just makes sense, and that burden is spread out amongst everyone in that's retail, et cetera, and as opposed to the B&O, which would have been more restrictive and would apply to a fewer number of businesses. So that's the determination that was made to move forward with a 1% municipal sales tax. I'd like Betsy to know that you were part of the motivation for making that switch.
Way to go. Way to put that on me.
It's all on you now.
Apparently.
No, but no, we're not hold that
No,
to you at all.
absolutely not.
The new ordinance 2024-05-17 municipal sales and use tax, again, is a 1% municipal tax going from 6 to 7%, brings us into par with all the other municipalities surrounding us. And there's also several municipalities in the state of West Virginia that are at 8% because they charge a B&O 1% tax in addition to a 1%.
There's about 100, right?
Yeah, it's over 100 municipalities have the 1% municipal. And there's also dozens that actually have, combine that with the B&O tax as well.
Right.
And our B&O tax in the town of Bath is probably the least amount of almost any municipality in the state of West Virginia.
Just based on our business mix and such.
Yeah.
I do think it's worth pointing out that if you compare, like even Bolivar is the example, and they're collecting upwards of 100,000. For us, that is 15% of our annual budget.
Oh, yeah.
So, and it will make the difference in ways like law enforcement and other things where we are stretched so thin.
Street paving. Street
paving,
paving,
everything.
safe sidewalks, lighting. I mean, you should be able to walk.
Additional parking.
Yes.
Parking. I mean, it's one thing to have a balanced budget, but that doesn't get you anywhere. That gets you to a
Doesn't get you
balance.
ahead.
That gets you to a balanced budget. That's not the answer.
Mhm.
For, this is a tourist town, and there are certain expectations when you come into this town. And one of the expectations is that you can walk on the sidewalk safely, that you can walk
Without
the town without
That
tripping,
you have a sidewalk.
that you have a
Let's
sidewalk.
back it up.
Yeah. I mean, we do. I mean, that is, we were working hard to make sure that we put a plan out there through Public Works and Streetscapes, but we actually can say, you know what, this is what we are doing, generational thinking, saying that we are going to get to the point where there are sidewalks that can take you from the park to Lot 12 to Ravenwood on both sides to the depot, that once the traffic's gone, so that specifically there's bike lanes and there's other ways to get around the town besides driving. So we're very focused on those things, but you got to get there. You have to lay the financial foundation down in order to get to where we're going. It's painful and it's a lot at one time. It's a lot.
But we're so overdue.
I mean, some of it 20 years in the making, and there has to be a sense of urgency. We're pushing a lot of this out there, and I'm sorry for the fact that it's just all hitting at one time. But even with the municipal sales tax, you're not looking at collection to begin until 2025. It takes a while for that process to be completed. We are working closely with the state of West Virginia, and it requires a lot of data input and those type of things. Town of Bath findings in regard to municipal sales and use tax. The town council of the town of Bath, a class 4 municipality in Morgan County, Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, hereby finds and declares that the adoption by the town of Bath for its municipal sales and service tax and its municipal use tax provisions of the Code of West Virginia, as amended, relating to imposition, administration, collection, and enforcement of the state consumer sales and service tax codified in West Virginia Code 1115-1, the state use tax codified in West Virginia Code 1115A-1, and streamlined sales and use tax acts codified West Virginia Code 1115B1. Again, all this information will be provided on the website. It's a lot to read through. I'll try.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
I know that when we talked privately and you were discussing the estimates for increasing the B&O tax on certain industries,
Yeah.
was somewhere around $40,000.
Yeah.
And so you just said that increasing this municipal sales tax by 1% would bring in over $100,000
Yes, that would be-
estimate.
Yes, correct.
Is there any discussion about perhaps implementing a 0.5% rather than a full percent, or maybe gradually? Because I know some communities in West Virginia have done a 0.5%
Yeah.
initially and then moved gradually
so-
toward the full percent, just because there are so many increases
Yeah.
in the fees and water, and I know sewer is coming too for the,
Sewer,
and we're all the businesses
Oh, yeah.
and residences. I mean, we all know, inflation costs,
Oh, it's
everything's
tremendous.
really gone up. So and I understand that y'all are trying to fix budget shortfalls and that kind of thing, and I understand that there's an urgency, but has been there any discussion
Well,
about
there's
maybe
always discussion.
gradually implementing
There
some of
is
these fees
discussion in
so that it's not
regard.
so shocking because that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
Just curious if you all had
Yeah,
thought of
$10.
doing it.
We've
Yeah.
gone through a lot of things. I think, Betsy, one of the stunners for us in doing the budget is that how difficult and how it was absurdly difficult this year. What we had done is not raise fees or taxes for a long time. It really didn't help anything. And also the past, there was a block of years that there was COVID money coming in, which helped to hide problems.
Sure.
So as the COVID money spent down, the inflation went up, which some of us predicted. And we're like faced with this horrible situation where, we're just hoping that this goes through. Splitting up the tax, I
know,
don't
it's
know.
probably not very popular, but I
Well,
just know that
it is.
budgetarily, you were looking at around 40,000
On
in
a,
revenue with the
on a
B&O.
$100 bill, it's $1 for the customer.
What?
On a $100 bill, it would be $1 more for the customer.
I get that.
Because it's a
Yeah.
sales tax.
Again, and I think because of the fact, Betsy, that we are so far behind 10 years or more from other municipalities that imposed this over a decade ago.
Right.
And then just bleeding, going back to the well with, a half and a half. This has been a really unpleasant exercise.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Well,
it's
I know
not-
that the business community at large in the town is not a fan of the municipal tax, so I just feel like I just need to put that out
Yeah,
there
they're
as
not
an
a fan
alternative.
of B&O tax. And
I know.
no one's a fan of any tax. We're, none of us are.
It was just a thought,
Yeah, no, I think.
just because the amount of money that you're looking at with B&O versus what this looks like it'll be
Well-
is double, so I thought maybe
Frankly,
there
I
might be.
think that this is much
Right.
easier to swallow for businesses
Sure.
because it's a
pass-through.
pass-through.
I get that,
pass-through.
100%.
B&O, I've always considered a very predatory tax in that you're taxed on your gross, which has nothing to do with what you have at the end of, know that. We all know that.
Unfortunately.
And, that's why car dealerships are not in municipalities if they can help it.
Right.
Just because the enormity of a gross for those companies. So I find, although all taxes irritate the heck out of me too, as anybody else, this is more palatable to me than B&O, and in wanting to move the town forward, better services, but, I know this is a lot going on, but
Does that amount of money correct the budget shortfall completely?
Absolutely.
I think so.
But it does more than that. It allows us to focus on infrastructure issues.
Right.
The street paving and the sidewalks and things that are visible and extraordinarily
My
important.
streetlights.
It'll be.
And your
Yeah.
streetlights, your streetlights are.
We're working on that.
We spent $40,000 on repair of the garbage truck this past year alone.
Which is something you don't even
Because they're
factor into
heavy.
your
And
budget.
let's not even talk about the water department.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
just,
And the
Okay.
way to look at this also is, I'm just thinking, we've instituted these other ones that are gonna happen in the next couple months. This is gonna be a year out.
Right.
So they're gonna level out and and then this is gonna take play. Whereas I'm thinking if you go to like a half on it, then you're gonna have to turn around and
Do it
reapply,
again,
which takes another year to do whatever you have to. I think the way they've structured this, I think it'll even out in the end because all of what we're doing now is gonna hit and then it's gonna kind of level out for a little while. And then, I mean, that's the way I look at it.
You'll have to change your computer in your systems one time with this.
Right.
And the other thing, I know people don't realize, we're active with grants. And we've always been, we're more active now than we ever have been. But most of these grants have matches. And when you don't have 20% of $100,000 grant to put in and you're freaking out and begging and burning, having, yard sales, it's tough, so we have
Okay, it
always
was just a
had.
thought.
No, it's a great.
you know what, I
Yeah.
appreciate it being
conversation.
lifted
Yeah, it's
up.
absolutely,
Because that perspective needs to be at our table and
Right.
in our
It is.
consciousness when we're
Absolutely.
making these
It's
decisions,
very much.
to be sensitive to the impact across the board. So thank you for lifting that
Yeah,
up.
you can't, it's one of those situations, Betsy, where you can't manage your way out of this. I mean,
Nope.
managing is kind of doing the day-to-day operations. The only way you can get out of this mess is to lead your way out of it. And we're leading our way out of it. We're showing some courage. And we realize the difficulty of the pushback. And, I have a new name in town, Mr. Fee, which is well earned. But, yeah, from a, but it's,
We'll get a new sign. maybe.
yeah, but it's just, it is definitely a necessary evil. And we've talked about it, we've thrown it around and it wasn't a decision we came through easily at all. But it was basically
Necessity.
yeah. It was
Well,
necessary.
and the other way to look at it, we're not just doing it to the business community. We're doing it to ourselves too, because we live here. You know, they've got a business here. I mean, you know,
Well, I think that's gonna be the conversation in the
Right.
business community is that it's going to be a deterrent from folks doing business downtown.
I don't
You
think
know,
so. I honestly don't think so.
I
I mean,
understand,
you over
but I,
the years have built clientele. I hear all the time. I've been in
well, I'm not
Frederick
talking
and-
about myself.
But
I
I'm
just
just
know
saying,
that there are a lot of
I-
businesses
other
downtown
businesses
that
also. I mean, I
will
hear.
feel that this can be a, you know,
You
a
know.
negative, have a negative impact on
Well,
them
and we've
doing
been
business.
particularly sensitive to that with the bypass coming in
Mhm.
and that draw. But to keep up with, you know, making this community one that, in spite of the 1% sales tax and in spite of, you know, a few extra fees and like this, it's really worth it to be here. It's worth it to be part of the town of Bath.
Right.
So that's what we're working on and we're doing the hard part now.
And I
Especially
appreciate
for
the relative
business.
data too, because we're not outliers in levying this tax. As Greg has pointed out, how many municipalities in West Virginia are already doing this?
Yeah, well over 100.
And they do that for the same, probably on the other side of the same decision-making process that we're doing our due diligence through, which is, revenue has to equal expenses and
Right.
hopefully have something left over for us to continue to improve and build upon the town in all the quality ways that everyone appreciates.
And you're right, Mary. Now, Betsy, it's the time for us to deliver as
Right.
a leadership group. So,
Well, I
yeah.
guess I was just hoping that maybe 0.5% would get you all there, but you
Well,
know your budget.
It won't get
I
you
don't
to
want to ever go through this again.
Susan's been a good and hard colleague on this.
Exactly.
You know, and everyone's voice has been heard. I think no one's tougher than Beth. She's quiet as can be, but I'll tell you what, you get her in a meeting, man, she'll tell me what she thinks.
Well, I ran on a no tax increase platform, I guess you would say. And I did not vote yes. I didn't say anything, which I know technically that means my vote on the water tariff is a yes. But I've been on the town council for 12 years now or something like that. And part of us is shame on us that we didn't understand the situation more clearly of the dire straits the town of Bath was in financially. Secondly, everything that we are going to be, the additional revenue that we are going to be receiving is addressing bare bones things that need to be done.
Mhm.
The roads, you know, the updates to the water plant that have to be done by law. There's nothing here that we
There's no
can't
pet
have.
projects.
Right, and I know there are a lot of places that have big taxes so they can do fancy things. We need a good, solid police department. We need policing in this town around the clock, 7 days a week. And we are nowhere near that. And we have to be able to pay our officers a salary where they're gonna stay more than 6 months or 2 years or whatever. And I support this because I think our number one need is a solid police department that is taking care of this community, that's enforcing the traffic, and dealing the best it can with the drug issue. And as hard as it is, there's nothing in our budget that's fluff. I mean, we have to fix our streets. We have to get our sidewalks in order. We have to have lights on our streets. We have to have a good police department. We have to have trash pickup. And that's basically what we've run out of money for. And we've got to, unless we can expand the boundaries of the town, sadly, there's no other revenue. There's no other way to do this
I
at
got
this
one more
point.
thing. I got one more thing than anybody else. Before I forget it, I'm at that age, you know. But, you know, we say, okay, the town hasn't
Thank you,
done
Beth.
and made any increases, raised any taxes on this for a very long time.
20
And
years. in some
really,
cases.
really, yeah, but really, in some cases, yeah, but really, if you all recall, and we've all tried to forget what happened financially to this country and this town in 2008. when it hit the fan with the real estate market and like this, I remember standing on North Washington Street and looking at 8 empty houses in a row. And so it took, believe me, 10 years for a community and the nation to pull up out of that. So now we feel like we're pulled up out of that. Then we had COVID, which shocked us all and kind of kidded us. Here's some money, here's some money, here's some money. And so we've been through about a 15-year, either hard times or frantically, how are we going to handle this, and been given money rather than watching budgets as we maybe should have. So it's all
We have to be self-sustaining. That's just our fiscal fiduciary responsibility. Every person sitting up here to make sure that our town budget is on solid, sound footing, and we are not overspending. We don't have money to overspend, but that we certainly can meet the basic municipal services that every person who pays taxes in this town has a right to expect.
I just wanted to say this for the record. We all know that the town is growing because people are tired in the bigger cities of the regulatory burden, the crazy fees that people have to pay for every single thing everywhere they turn. That's how they feel. So they come here. We've got entrepreneurs and we've got great growth happening right now, but we also have an economy in shambles. Food prices are double digits more expensive than they were percentage-wise just a couple years ago. Restaurant margins are razor thin, right? So every little thing makes a huge difference in people just throwing in the towel and getting on, government subsidies or running their business. And if this town becomes a place where it's harder to do business than it should be or was last year or the year before, they're just going to move to the next town to the west and bring their restaurant there and bring their business there. And the growth is going to bypass us, right? So I want to talk about incentives, and I want to talk about what makes it livable for us here. I've traveled in Hawaii a lot. I'm sure a lot of you have too. Locals get a discount on almost everything with their Hawaii ID. Why don't we do that here? It's an incentive. You get 10% off of everything as long as the businesses sign up for it. That's what I'm going to do in my business by myself, is just say, hey, show me your ID, 10% off of
That's a great
everything.
idea.
Yeah, so you need incentives to keep people here.
But I do disagree with the fact that is a very strong idea, Priscilla. But if someone goes one town over to Shepherdstown, they're paying 7% plus.
I meant to the west, like everything's moving to the west.
They go to Ohio,
Go to
they're paying
Raleigh.
higher rates.
9% in Ohio.
Right, 8 or
Well,
9.
Yeah,
but
but
they're leaving those places, and
Right.
this was the refuge, and if we're no longer
Right.
going to be the refuge, and I'm not saying
Right.
we aren't, but we need to think about that, and we need to think about in terms of incentives and what do you get for your extra money.
But the other thing you gotta realize is our tipping fees for trash have gone crazy. You
Oh,
know,
everything.
it's
What do you
every,
mean, what does that mean?
Your
where we
landfill
dump our
fees.
trash.
Dump it.
Just
They're
dump
called
it.
tipping fees. So what we do is when we take the trash truck, our prices have gone just ridiculous out, our prices for, of course, fuel to keep our trucks on the road. You know, so we're like almost every other business in this town. We're trying to tighten our belt. But the thing about it is, our costs have gone just craziness. I mean, the price of stuff right now, a police officer, what we have to pay a police officer because they can go 8 miles north of here and make, ridiculous money.
10,000 more.
Yeah,
Right.
and if they go to Berkeley or Jefferson County, they're making crazy money, so somewhere along the line, we have to try to be even with things, and we're trying to be as light as we can on the business owners, and I hope they understand we're trying to give them better services, make better, decisions, and just go from there. And your point is great. If the business owners got together and said, hey, you're a local, you live here in town, you shop with me or you buy something from me, you show me the card and you get 10% off or
I think she
whatever.
was meaning the town gives you 10%.
No, I said, no.
No, she said the business
No,
owners.
business owners.
Right.
Yeah.
So that
It could be
is-
something the town
right.
promotes that we
Yeah,
actually do this.
and we could promote that.
And there is one downtown that does that already.
It's a great idea. So, but, I just
Do you
wanted
have
to
to
put
read
it.
this whole thing?
It's
I need to Proceed.
Okay,
Okay.
proceed.
Okay.
I have to get to the point where we do share. Article, imposition of municipal sales and service tax. The rate of tax shall be 1% of the sales price as defined in section 2 of this ordinance of the tangible personal property, custom software, or taxable service purchased or leased. Moving to page 6. The taxes imposed by this ordinance do not apply to the sale or use of motor fuel, the sale or use of motor vehicles upon which the tax imposed by West Virginia Code 1115 3C is paid, the purchase or use of any intangible personal property, custom software, or service that the town of Bath is prohibited from taxing under the laws of this state of the United States. Moving to page 8, local rate and boundary database. The tax commissioner is required by West Virginia Code 1115B35 to maintain a database for all jurisdictions levying a sales or use tax in the state. The town of Bath shall furnish the tax commissioner with information the tax commissioner requires for the database and allow the tax commissioner to maintain a database that assigns each 5-digit and 9-digit zip code within the town of Bath to the proper rate of tax. Whenever the boundaries of the town of Bath change, whether by annexation or de-annexation, the town of Bath shall promptly notify the tax commissioner in writing of the change in boundaries. State level administration. The tax commissioner is responsible for administering, collecting, and enforcing the taxes imposed by this ordinance as provided in West Virginia Code 813C6 and 1115B33. Tax commissioner may retain from collection of the taxes imposed by this ordinance the fee allowed by West Virginia Code 11-10-11C or by any other state law or legislative law. The tax commissioner shall deposit all proceeds from the collection of the taxes imposed by this ordinance, minus any fee for collecting, enforcing, and administering taxes retained under this section, in a sub-account for the town of Bath established in municipal sales and service tax and use fund. An interest-bearing account created in the state treasury pursuant to West Virginia Code 813C-7, all monies collected and deposited in the sub-account for the town of Bath shall be remitted at least quarterly by the state treasurer to the town of Bath treasurer as provided in West Virginia Code 813C-7. Automatic updating. Any amendments to Articles 9, 10, 15, 15A, and 15B, Chapter 11 of the Code of West Virginia shall automatically apply to the municipal sales and use tax imposed pursuant to this ordinance. Effective date will be at the second reading in June. However, the town of Bath hereby suspends imposition and collection of the municipal sales and use tax imposed by this ordinance until January 25th or such later date, as required by the legislative rule codified in West Virginia Code 11028-1. Notification of the tax commissioner upon adoption of the ordinance by the town of Bath, town council. The town Bath recorder shall forthwith send to the tax commissioner a certified copy of this ordinance, the rate and the boundary database required by section 10 of this ordinance, a map showing the boundaries of the town of Bath, a description of the boundaries of the town of Bath, and such other information as the tax commissioner may need to administer, collect, and enforce the taxes imposed by this ordinance. And that completes first reading of the town of Bath municipal sales and use taxes 2024-05-17.
Do we need a motion for discussion?
Yes.
I make
We
a
did
motion.
that. We don't have to discuss it.
We already did that, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, people still
I
have
need
that
a motion
opportunity.
and a second.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the first reading of Town of Bath Ordinance 2024-05-17 regarding municipal sales and use taxes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tom.
I have a, oh crap.
Motion.
A motion and a second on the
I know
floor.
how you feel.
Thank you very much for the Town of Bath Ordinance 2024-05-17 municipal sales and use tax. We've already had discussion, so I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. The first reading is done.
Complete.
All right.
I want to thank you guys for the discussion. It helped us flesh out
Yeah.
things that we
Yep.
may not have hit.
All right, we're gonna move on to waterworks. Tom, you have the floor.
Sorry, Tom.
Tom, we're looking forward to your very brief report.
I hope to keep it very brief tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we are all aware, the last couple of 3 or 4 weeks have been rancorous at our water department. We've seen the pictures of our pumps being taken out of the roof. That failed. The scenario to that deal is that the water department is moving forward with bids to have those pumps refurbished. Right now, we cannot afford, well, the time to have new equipment put in is sometime in December to receive that new equipment. And we hope that a 6-week time limit to have the original pump rebuilt and a new shaft turned to operate that pump with the pump being upgraded and brought back into line. During that period of time, we will also be placing our second raw water pump in our raw water tank, which is in the state park. So we're not out of the woods yet, but at the same token, we are moving forward. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully everything will hold together as we are running with a single raw water pump and with a single freshwater pump right now. So with that all being said, again, the water department is everybody's just standing waiting to hear what's going to transpire so that we can actually solidify a date when all this is going to transpire. My hopes are by the middle of August, we are back operating completely, everything under control. At our last water committee meeting, we did approve, the water committee did approve Greg to bring forth the tariff, of which he has done this evening. Again, as has been said, it has been lots of thought and forethought that's gone into this, hoping to bring the water department back to a financial basis that is solid. And right now we're not. Our R&R account has gone from $1 million down to $500,000, and that does not include the repairs that are going to be transpiring. So everything that is transpiring in this tariff is desperately needed. And as I sit here and think about it, in 1990, when I came, we were getting 51 cents per 1,000 gallons of use on our monthly bill with a minimum of 2,000. And so the minimum bill, of course, was $2.16 at that point. The scenario is that we live in a different age, and of course we are attempting to bring everything in line along with the new requirements with the fire department and finding our unaccounted for water, which is water that can be used, to take a fire, for defense needs, for any kind of fires that may be out in the county. We want to make certain that water is available and that the capacity of our current well, the Lord Fairfax Springs, is there to meet these needs. With our bypass going in, there's going to be an extended push. There's no doubt in my mind for entities to move just outside the town of Bath. I would not be a bit surprised in the next 10 years to see a new motel or something of that area that's going to be transpiring. And we are working right now with the Dollar General to put a new store right out in front of the Warm Springs School right now. So there's so many things that are going on, and this tariff is greatly needed. So thank you, council, for let's bringing this together and getting it first read. Additionally, we have at our last meeting, we did approve our water superintendent to move forward with the rebuilding of the pumping instead of the actual purchasing of new equipment. And we are reaching out to other entities to help us in the very, very near future to upgrade our entire facility. With that all being said, at this very moment, we are probably pumping the best water in the world throughout our system. It is the diamond of Berkeley Springs. It is what brings people to our community. And we thank you all, and we thank our community for supporting us during this time.
All right, thank you, Tom.
Who
All
were-
right.
John.
who were-
Yeah, we're at the portion at the end of the meeting where I will ask the council members if there's anything else they need to bring up. If not, I will ask anybody that's sitting out there in the audience if they have anything else to say.
Not that person. Wait till we get home.
I won't take but a quick second, but it's important for the community to know what happened the other night because this is very, very, very important. And talk about safety and not having enough police hours. So Greg and I had a long day with 12 guests and, we ran to Maryland for a wedding and we got back and settled our guests in and everything else and came back from Regina. It was at 10:20, which is unusual. And they're 70-year-old women, 70-year-old ladies, and they had parked in the parking lot to the left of, the inn that we have rights to use. And after we closed the inn, we happened to go out and I was getting something out of the car. And out of the corner of my eye, I see this guy who came out of the parking lot in all black. He had a hoodie, fitted his whole body all the way down, no color at all. And he must have seen us, turned a quick right, and that's what caught my eye, and ran down in front of your house all the way down, but not really running, but he was going very quickly. And I just flipped off my slippers and I ran after just to get a good view of his back. And Greg started going after him. And I thought, oh, great, he's going to get shot. So seriously, this guy then he had some bad intention. I would think, looked like maybe 20s or 30s. I don't know, about 5'6". His body shape, very like you could scale a wall. I will tell you, I didn't see his face. However, when we got down to 522 at the end of Congress Street, there was a guy sitting in a white car and he yelled out to us. He goes, that guy has a mask on. He was totally, so no one could see him. This happened in our town Saturday night at 10:30, 10:40-ish. And talk about a long day on our part. We got in the car to go find him because when we crossed over, he went behind the library and someone was staying at Jeff and Sam's. And she said, he went that way. I said, lock your doors. And that's when we went back and got the car just to scout. But at that point, he's just gone into the dark. I say this because we have no law enforcement that I could have called for our town. Then you would have had to wait an hour from the county. We didn't even get to bed till 11:30, and I had, all those guests to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to feed. So, and it wasn't and so we need better lighting. We need, more cameras. We need more diligence. This is just a community outreach, just to say that this is what we do for neighbors, is to watch out. Mm-hmm. I worried about Priscilla and her mom being in that house. At least we got him across the street, and he went towards William Street. And that's all I can say. But that happened. And that was freakish because he just came down from 5 or from 9 and or from the apartment building. I don't know exactly where, but he was in our parking lot when those women got back.
Yeah.
And
Thanks
that
for
was
sharing
scary.
that,
There are
Claire.
guests.
Yeah.
There are
Yep.
guests.
And that
They
was
spend a
that-
lot of money in our town.
And
We're
that
gonna-
was not the 70 hours of policing
That's
out of
right.
168 a week that we do have covered. We're still trying to cover the deficit between 168 hours in the week and 70 hours that we actually have police protection. And it doesn't include Saturday night at 10:30.
That's right.
So thank you for lifting that up because it's important for us to appreciate all the holes we're trying to fill with all the
I
things we're
just
doing.
want it noted that they are out on and off, so you don't know what time they're actually
Right.
gonna be out. Kind of got them spaced out, but like I said, it is a problem that we're working on. We know the problem, and we're doing our best. Like I said just a little while ago, police officers' salaries have gone up, and sometimes it's hard to retain. We tried to grow our own for a while, and they no sooner go to the academy, they're here 5 months, 4 months, 3 months, and then they take off, and then we start over again. It's not cheap to send them to the academy to get trained. So we are working on the problem, and we're going to do the best we can.
Oh, sure. I
Thank
just want
you.
to share, just so
Oh,
everyone's
yeah.
eyes are out,
Absolutely.
because obviously
Everybody should be watching.
He has a reason.
Every time I take a walk,
Just be careful.
when I take
And
a
we tell our
walk
guests
or
the
whatever, I watch
Don't walk
everything
in
going
town.
on. You just don't know what's going to happen.
That's
So,
right.
I spoke to Daryl Coles about, I spoke to a lot of people, Bill Clark, Sean Forney, Daryl Coles, the lights that are at the old high school or the Boys
Yep.
and Girls Club
We've got to,
were tied into the drug rehab center's
correct.
box. And Daryl said that all they needed from you is a signature.
we've got
To
a work
get the-
order in.
Really?
We got a work
Yes.
order
To
in.
Potomac Edison?
Potomac Edison, they gotta
Really?
come out and
Yes.
redesign where
Aw,
the power's
this is
gonna come.
They've
So,
been off
um,
for years.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that
we
parking lot
jumped
is
on that
really
Susan,
dark at
found out
midnight when
Susan
my
was in a
girls leave,
meeting
so.
with them a couple weeks ago. She come back and said we need to get them lights turned on. We got a work order in. We're just waiting for Potomac Edison to come back with us. We will get it as soon as
You'll have your
possible.
lights.
Thank you.
We are gonna make sure you're
And
well lit up
we-
there.
We will pay for that.
And we'll
too.
pay for it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so,
Well, you know the activities that go on
Oh,
in
yeah.
that
Yeah.
parking
Yeah.
lot.
Of course.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Believe me, I know. I picked
So,
up some unfortunate stuff in
well,
the, in the,
you know,
thing
just
a
the whole
couple years
neighborhood
ago.
in general, it's very dark right now. So,
Well, like I said, we're working on it. Work
appreciate
orders
it.
in.
Thank
We're
you.
just waiting on them to come out and tell us what, you're gonna have to redesign that electric. Once we find out where that is, we'll get a meter, get an electrician in here, get a meter set, and we'll get the power on.
And that's where that 1% goes.
Thank
Yep.
you.
And that's,
For
Those
stuff like that.
for things
you know,
like
we
that.
pay for all the lighting comes out of our budget every year. Any light that you see on a pole in town
$20,000 a year.
Well, there's a
is,
street light on my property that I pay for, just so you know.
that's fine. That's great. And I'm thankful for that. But like I said, the people have to realize every light that's on in this street, on the streets or whatever, is coming out of the town of Bath budget every year. So,
It's frankly a miracle that we've kept the lights on ourselves.
Quite literally, quite literally.
That's been,
Motel 6.
yeah.
So-
Look at the legal light on.
All right.
All right.
Anything else? If not, I'm gonna ask for a common consent to adjourn.
So moved. Miss Betsy?
Yes.